If you're a mortgage broker struggling to generate leads, this one is for you. In this masterclass, I'm breaking down the mortgage marketing blueprints. This is the stuff that I do with my clients to help them attract high quality leads, build a powerful brand, and create a sustainable flow of business without relying on outdated tactics. We'll cover everything from brand touch points to the 3 types of leads you need to focus on. And if you want to take this even further, I've put together a free downloadable guide with hands-on exercises and coaching insights. You can check that out. The link is in the description. Let's do it. First thing we talk about in this mortgage marketing blueprint is that it's all about online lead generation basics, understanding how you actually generate leads online in this modern world, because this is something I think many people get a bit confused about. And so we're going to break this down first. This is part 1 of 5. There's 5 bits within this masterclass that we need to go through, but this is the first one. So we need to understand, first of all, what are brand touch points. So your success is determined as a mortgage broker by the number of brand touch points that you have. Now, these are moments when somebody is interacting with your brand. So this is whenever somebody comes into contact with you. So that could be online, that could be offline. It doesn't necessarily matter, but it is whenever someone comes into contact with you, they are moving further up the buying cycle and understanding what you do. So views, likes, and shares and stuff like that, when we focus that on social media, those things don't really matter as much as you think. What matters is for every one of those views is a brand touch point. So yes, the metric is quite good, but if it's going to the wrong people, that's not great. But what we do need to understand with it is stop measuring for success on those metrics and instead need to measure on, are we getting our brand out there and getting as many brand touch points as possible? Now, why is that important? Why are brand touch points important? Well, there's a number of reasons, but one of the first things that's important to understand with brand touch points is that it takes on average around 8 to 10 interactions, brand touch points, before someone will remember what you do or associate what you do with you. Meaning, if you want to be known as the mortgage broker and they know you already, it takes about 8 to 10 of these brand touch points to work. And so it's a numbers game. We need to focus on more touch points if we can get people through that cycle. The more people we can get to that 8 to 10 concept, the faster you're going to get leads as a broker. It's just really that simple. We overcomplicate way more with this, but this is the basic understanding. Everything else we're going to talk about in this masterclass goes on the premise of you're trying to increase as many brand touch points as possible. It's the lowest possible it's the Markham's razor concept of the most important thing. If it increases a brand touch point, it's worth doing. If it doesn't, it's not worth doing. Really that simple. But now let's talk a little bit about leads, specifically lead types. In my opinion, there are 3 types of leads. And when I work with clients, these are the 3 things that we look at. Okay. And not all leads are the same. And you need to have all 3 of these in order to have a robust system. The first one we have is referral clients. We also have brand leads and we have demand leads. So a referral client is somebody who has been referred directly by an existing client already. So I actually call these direct lineage. They're like a family tree. So a referral client is somebody who has worked with you, has loved your service, and now has referred somebody else. Do not get that confused with someone who, for example, let's say your sister or brother who knows you do mortgages. They meet somebody and they say, my brother does mortgages, and they quote what we'd say refer, but that's not a true referral lead. It's a demand lead, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's not a referral lead. The way that our system works and the way that my mortgage business mastery system works is that referral leads purely they have a direct lineage. You can trace them back to where someone parted money with you, gave you money, and actually used your service. Very important to differentiate that. Referral leads is the first one. The second one we have is brand leads. So these are people who don't know you, but they become aware of you through content marketing. So they are unaware who you are, but they become aware of you. And then when they then come and work with you later on. So they weren't referred by anybody. They were recommended you through social media or some form of marketing, a brand touch point in some way or another. And then because of that, they then have moved through and then they finally become a client of yours. And I'm going to unpack these in a bit more detail now after I've set the stage, but you then have demand leads. Now, demand leads are people who need your service now, but they have not been referred. So they have not been referred by somebody or seen you. So a demand lead is somebody who has a problem right now and you just happen to have fallen into their radar. So go back to that concept I said about a brother or a sister who knows that you do mortgages and their friend needs a mortgage. Their friend needs a mortgage, so you come up into mind because they need a mortgage. But they're not a direct referral lead because they haven't actually done the business with you. Demand is it's market demand. How many is actually happening? Most mortgage brokers that I know and work with or have met when I first work with them, they usually have a lot of business from demand and maybe a small amount of referral, depending on how long they've done it for. As time goes on, they get a bit more referral. By the way, referral leads, for what classes a referral, is also repeat business. So if you are a Remo, that would be a referral because they're effectively referring onto themselves. They're coming back to you by choice if they already like you. So I put them in a referral business. So that's repeat clients, existing client bank, and or people coming into it. And so that is like, that's the three main lead types. Now, the way that I often describe it when I'm working with people is I say referral is knows you and needs you. Brand leads is doesn't know you, doesn't need you. And then demand lead is doesn't know you, does need you. Now, the brand leads realistically are the ones that they create what's known as a parasocial relationship. And a parasocial relationship means they build a relationship with someone, but it's one way, usually online. It's our social media stuff we have now. If you're watching this now, you probably have a parasocial relationship with me where you feel like you know me. Some of you do. Some of you might think, who's this random guy? I've just first time I met him. And then you will do soon. No, who knows, maybe. But that is what you are trying to build here with a brand lead is a parasocial relationship. They might not be ready for you yet. So they might be locked in what we call a passive prospect, meaning that they're not actually in the mortgage market right now. They're currently in a fixed deal or they haven't got a deposit. And so they are going to be built up and slowly over time, could be 2, could be 5 years, but eventually they're going to come to you and go, you're my mortgage broker. You've been my mortgage broker this whole time. This is the same for anybody, by the way, who watches my content now. And you think, you're my coach. I just haven't paid you yet. And one day, some of you will, who watch these videos, come and be my clients in the future. That is a brand lead. This applies to me as well as everybody else. All three of these are important. And for a business, you need to have all three of these. To be a solid, sustainable business, all three of these are needed. If you have 2 of them, it's not enough. Some people, when they first start out, of course, they're going to go by demand only. But you want to try and get all 3 of them in. It's going to create a more sustainable and more robust business. And that's going to allow you to not just survive, but thrive and hopefully scale if that's the type of thing you want to do. So all of these leads are increased by brand touch points. And so how do we actually go about that? Well, how do we actually increase brand touch points? Well, quite simple. Brand touch points can increase in 3 very simple ways. The first one you have is you have volume, which is you increase the number of platforms you use. Okay. So volume would be, if I am going to use, if I'm currently using Facebook, I'm going to now go and use Instagram, and I could then use LinkedIn, and that's increasing the volume of content or platforms we are using to push our brand touch points. For example, if we take it offline, we could go into leaflet dropping or sponsorship of local sports teams. That's volume. So we can increase our brand touch point by going wide. It's width is the first one. The other one you can do is by frequency, which is the amount you actually post. So frequency, if we were thinking if volume is width, then frequency is depth. That is the amount we post. So if I'm using social media, I can post once a week. I can now post 3 times a week. I could post 5 times a week, 7 times a week, twice a day, 5 times a day. That is how we increase frequency in order to increase brand touch points. The more we get, the more we're going to have. That is a win as well. So that's another way of doing it. Same thing with frequency of sponsorship. If we're sponsoring local football teams, we could sponsor the boys teams from junior up to 16. We could sponsor the girls teams from junior to 16, from like 6 to 16. We could go up through them all. And the more we do that, the more we're going to increase brand awareness. Now, of course, and I will point this out, there is a diminishing return, and not all of these are made equal. Each one of you will have a very different one that gives back. It's like, I think everybody wants to think which is the golden goose, or the goose that lays the golden egg, isn't it? So we don't know. Social media is pretty solid, but which one of them is, we don't know. But you will find that something will work for you. And the more you try them, once you know one that works, that's when you whack the frequency up on the one that's really working. But you can increase volume too. And then the other one you have is engagements. This is where you interact with your audience by commenting, messaging, and networking with them on their turf. So this is another way of increasing brand touch points. Engagement is like networking, is a great example of engagement. Going to events and talking to people about what they do and what they like is all about them. And it's allowing you to build that brand touch point, but not by talking about what you do. You're talking about them. Same thing with going on to social media, commenting on people, going on Facebook, giving them a type. All of that stuff is increasing brand touch points. There's a great concept that I love, which they say is comments are content. When someone sees a comment from you, they're going to look at you and they go, oh, your name, and then they might check you out, or they might go, oh yeah, that's my mortgage advisor. Again, the same thing is happening here. We are creating a brand touch point. Brand touch point, the goal is to create 8 to 10 in order to get someone aware. Obviously, as an average, it will go up and down depending on how far it is. And usually the more touch points, the stronger the relationship. The lower the touch points, the worse the relationship, the harder the relationship is to get them to buy. So very, very useful. And I've had clients who will come on a discovery call with me, for example, and be like, I don't care how much it is, I'll pay you. Whatever. Just write the number. I've had other people who literally have found me on the YouTube video maybe once, jumped on a call with me and don't really know much about me. And they're like, well, okay, and they start to try and justify. These are the things you need to look at. There are different types of leads. One's a demand, one's a brand. Referrals, they pretty much sell themselves. Now let's move on to the second part of the mortgage marketing blueprint. And this is the mortgage marketing system that I love and use with my clients all the time. Now, this system is broken into 3 main parts. It's a very, very boiled down version. It's been a lot more complex over the years. I've simplified a lot of this. This is like version 3.0 at this point, the amount of blueprints we've gone through. And so the ones we've got here is we have, number 1 is awareness, then we have nurture, then we have lead, okay? And the first thing with awareness is that the system we need to look at is getting people in. We need to increase our visibility through social media, through online marketing of all different types. And we'll talk about those different types you can use in a minute. But your awareness is about getting people who don't know you to know who you are. So everybody, if you think about that, we said that 8 to 10 thing that we spoke about earlier, that 8 to 10, this is number 1 of that 8 to 10. That is awareness. We need to make them aware of you. So number 1 is the first thing. Every person who knows you, who's worked with you, at some point had a genesis point where they didn't know you and then they were made aware of you. And that's awareness content. Now, it's important to understand with awareness content that our job within the marketing strategy is to make sure we are using platforms that creates awareness about what you do by pushing to people who don't know you. So a great example of this is something like an Instagram reel or a Facebook reel or TikTok or some form of search-based content. YouTube can be good for that. Blogging can be good for that. And so this is where people who are looking for you or have been pushed in front of you. So they weren't looking for you specifically, but they have a problem, or the algorithm decides that they believe they are a right fit for you. Ads is another one, by the way, for awareness, but it's getting you in front of people, the right people. The second one you have then, once we've gone through that awareness, that number 1 point, that genesis point, we then have nurture. And nurture is building that trust by educating those potential clients. So these people is when we talk about these brand leads, this is how we get them from that 8 to 10. We're getting them from that 1 to the 8 to 10. And this is type of content that builds trust, that explains things in more detail and allows them to start to go, okay, you're somebody I trust. Now, the nurture process, depending on the type of prospect you're dealing with, meaning an active or passive prospect. Active prospect, by the way, is somebody who's in the market right now to buy, would probably be more of a demand lead. And a passive prospect would be somebody who is a brand lead, really. That's the different type of ways of doing them. Depending on who they are and how long they are before they would become activated, might depend on how long the nurture sequence is. That might be 2 years, it could be 5 years, it could be a month. You don't know. But nurture, once they're in the nurture, that's what's going on. And then the nurture will always lead to the lead, which is to make it simple for them to book in a call with you. So your content, you should have some form of content that is on your marketing, on your website, or usually a website landing page, where it's a video explaining who you are, what you do, and exactly how it works. You also oftentimes find this content on the pinned points on Instagram. So if I bring up my phone now, if you look at the top of my phone there's these 3 posts across the top, and these are all what I would call a lead piece of content. So this is who am I and why should you care? And the whole goal of this is explaining who I am, who I've helped, and some of the results. So what that is doing is the whole goal is to get people to book in. You have the same type of one here, which is if you're new here, then go and start at these places. So it's telling people where to go to start getting specific types of value or anything like that. Now, that is what I would call a lead piece of content, because, and sometimes referred to in the kind of YouTube space as a money video, which is the place that gets them to convert. It's a call to action piece of content. So we need awareness content, nurture content, and lead content, effectively the ones where we close them. So one makes them aware of us, one builds that trust, the other one actually gets them over the line and start talking to you as a prospect. Now, they're all very, very important, and they're all very, very useful, but it all comes down to having all three of these in your marketing. If you don't have all three of these, you will be missing a massive trick, because if you just have awareness, which I've seen people have before, they just focus on building awareness. By building awareness, you will naturally go through those two. You will naturally get through. By doing awareness content, you will start to nurture people, you will generate leads. But if you do nurture and lead generation only, and you're not got any awareness, you won't have any leads. So it has to go in that order. But realistically, in this order, number one would be the first thing you focus on, then you'd bring in a number two, and then you'd bring in a number three. So that would be the order that you would look at doing it over time as you start to upskill yourself. Again, don't get too caught up in worrying about it. A lot of the time, if you just start doing awareness content, it will start to nurture and lead gen on its own. And then you can get better as time goes on and go around that loop. Now let's talk about the content strategy. There's a couple of things going to unpack in this one, but the first thing is, what do you actually talk about? Well, realistically, I've got 10 things you should speak about as a mortgage broker if you want to generate content. Everybody has the exact same problems, and what I call this top of funnel content, which is what people have an issue with. You should just be answering those problems. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You do not need to be different. There's nothing worse than someone saying that, and I just want to be different, everybody's the same. No, you want to be the same because they're coming to you for a problem. If I've got a broken toilet, I don't want to go to a plumber who's twerking, doing something completely different and random. I want to go to the guy that looks like he can fix my toilet. All right, really just stop over dramatizing it and letting our ego get in the way. Just make it super clear that you are the person who helps them with X problem. So what is that problem? Really straightforward. Just answer these, all 10 of these, over and over again. How much can I borrow? What deposit do I need? What is the current interest rate? How long does the mortgage process take? What are the fees involved? Fixed versus variable? What documentation? Can I get a mortgage with bad credit? What is the mortgage principal? What is the mortgage in principle, and how do mortgage repayments work? Guess what? If you have a niche, just add the niche in front of this and you're done. How much can I borrow as a first-time buyer? What deposit do I need as a first-time buyer? What is the current interest rate for a first-time buyer? You can see the thing. Self-employed, buy-to-let. It consistently changes. It's exactly the same thing. And all you need to do is go down that list over and over and over again, because it will change. How much can I borrow as a first-time buyer earning $25,000? How much can I borrow as a first-time buyer earning $50,000? You can just change them over and over again. But that is the main questions, because it is the questions, and you know this if you're a broker and you've been doing this for a while, you get asked all those questions all the time in your discovery calls. So don't mess about with trying to make it any different. Just do that. Just talk about that, nothing else. And again, we get cute, we get overcomplicated. It's silly. Now, on top of this, to make this go infinite, you can even do this, which is, I call this the content repurposing framework. And this is each topic. So from each topic, you can create 6 types of content. So there are 6 main things you can look at. So we have the quick tip, which is a short, snappy piece of advice. We have a myth buster, which is common misconceptions. We have a common mistake, which is explaining common errors. So explaining common errors that people make and how to avoid them. We have a client story, which is sharing a real life example. We have an FAQ, which is a straightforward question and answer format. And then we have an action step, which is provide a step-by-step guide. Now, if you look at that, it says there, if you follow this, you can create 60 pieces of content just from that those 10 questions here. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's take how much can I borrow as a first-time buyer, and then let's do it as 4.5 times income multiple, just to set parameters. So a quick tip would be, you pick up your phone, really simple, and you go, quick tip. I just got my phone in the shot there. So it'd be, quick tip. Did you know that you can borrow about 4.5 to sometimes 4.75 times your income, depending on, as a first-time buyer? It's something that many people don't realize. That's a quick tip. Then a myth buster would be, a common myth is that you don't get very high income multiples as a first-time buyer. This is actually not true. If you're a first-time buyer, you normally get the same, sometimes in some products, even higher income multiples than most people. It really comes down to whether you're buying as an individual applicant or as a joint application. That could be a myth buster. Common mistake, same thing. Common mistake I see people make is they think they can't afford a house because they're first-time buyers and they won't be able to borrow as much. But actually, most of the time they can borrow the same amount, if not more. Now, I know you might think, but just on this, you might think that's the same one, but it's not. One's a myth, one's a mistake. Different framing. One is that you might make this mistake. Myth is you might have heard this. So they're 2 different things. Client story would be, a client of mine recently was first-time buyer, didn't realize they could borrow 4.5 times their income, and thought that they would have to only be able to borrow 4. And then because of that, they were looking at houses of 2 beds, and now they've actually just bought their 3 bed. And I've just found out as well that the wife is pregnant and they're expecting their first child, which is super exciting because now they have the home to be able to grow into. Straight away, client story, still the same concept. FAQ, can I borrow? How much money can I borrow as a first, how much money can I borrow as a first time buyer? There you go, straight away. You can borrow this, answer it straightforward. Action steps, how to find out how much money you can borrow as a first time buyer. Step 1 is you need to get all your documents in order. Step 2, speak to a mortgage broker. Step 3, get an AIP. Step 4, go out and look for houses. There you go. That is a step-by-step guide. So you can see with this, it's not very difficult. You take those questions, you run them through this repurposing framework, and you just keep churning them over and over and over again. And you never, ever will run out of content. And yet so many people get so confused with these, and they really don't need to. They really, really don't need to. Which brings me now onto the follow-up and results process. Now, the follow-up and results process is all about sharing your social proof. It's about getting people, again, all of this thing is about increasing these brand touch points. So it's about getting people to know that you're good at the job and seeing you. So weirdly, as a broker, one of the things you have is you're sat on a gold mine on your, like a content gold mine is just there in your emails if you actually just look at it. Now, what is this? Well, your entire process should be, one, you should be telling the client, because this is going to, every one of these milestones, there's 7 of them, they should be telling the client, and also you should be posting it to social media. Why? Well, if you tell the client, you're going to increase the chance of referral leads, and if you post to social media, you're going to increase the chance of brand leads and demand leads. So what would you do with this? Well, when the mortgage application is submitted, the first thing you do, you'd say congratulations to the client, you'd email the client, mortgage application is fully submitted and all gone in. You would then screenshot the email of the application, redact any information, of course, and you would post that to social media on your stories as a result. We'd say, great, client just submitted. You do the exact same thing for the evaluation instructed, the valuation completed. You do it for the mortgage offer. You do it for the house exchange. You do it for the house completion. So that would be the contact that you would do in order to make sure that you're posting to social media and sharing these results. Now, a great example of this is Anish Patel, who's one of my longest clients I've worked with. And if we look at Anish's stuff, these are the type of things that he is posting on his social media, and they are results. They are people all sharing. So they're all milestones where they're lenders saying, these are the results we've had. And you can see these things are just screaming social proof. They're effectively saying, I deal with people in this situation. Really straightforward. You're sitting on a gold mine. If you think about it, client you have, there's at least 6 opportunities there. Now, I would also add in this one, they said at mortgage application submitted, I'd probably do an AIP as well in there. But you do have at the end of this as well, this post-completion check-in. Now, if you check in with people at the end of completion, normally about 3 weeks after, you are going to have a significantly higher chance of people referring you. So you check in with them so it looks like you've done the completion, but then you go back, you ask them, how's it? I can't believe it's been 3 weeks. Hope everything's going well. And at that point then, you are going to increase the chance of referral because you're coming back, you're increasing the brand touch point with them, and then they're going to share you more. So we want those referral leads. That's how we do it. Make sure that they're not just seen as once I've been paid and you've completed, you're gone, but that you're actually still in my thoughts. This is a really good one. It's obviously not something you put on social media. You can do. You could do a little video on your story saying, just had a great chat with my clients. They moved in about 3 weeks ago. They settled in nicely. It's really lovely to see that happening. That's a great behind the scenes video, and it shows that you care and that you're also working with lots of people. Awesome ways of constantly showing the world you are good at what you do. Now let's bring us on to the 5th bit, which is talking about the testimonials and the referral strategy. How do you actually get those referrals? We've spoken a lot about how to get those, increase those brand ones. By default, all brand stuff will increase demand anyway. Demand happens on its own naturally. But how do we get those, some of that's more referral? And how do we get those testimonials from our clients? There's a couple of questions that we've got on here. So the first one is when to ask for a testimonial. You should ask for a testimonial at the mortgage offer stage, okay, not at completion. And this is because this is when the client is the happiest. There's a thing known as the peak end effect. And the reason why we call it the peak end effect is, or the reason why it's known as peak end effect is that people remember the peak of their experience and the end. And then they draw their entire experience of that between those 2 points. So everything else you did, irrelevant in their head because they only remember those 2. So the peak is actually mortgage offer. And so the reason why we ask for a testimonial at that point is because that you've delivered on the thing that they've asked. Interestingly, in this place, you are the only one who has not, who at this point, has delivered on what they said they were going to do. If you think about it, the estate agent's not yet completed, the solicitor's not yet completed. So you are the only one who has done what they said you want to do. In a very stressful process, this is really valuable. The other reason why it's really valuable as well is to get at this point is that if you try to leave it till the end, it will be an afterthought because they're going to be harassed as well by the solicitors and the estate agents for testimonials too, and everyone's going to pile in. There's lots of paperwork. So right now, you ask them for the testimonial at mortgage offer stage and you want to chase it. Now, when you ask them for a testimonial, you want to make sure they structure it in the right way. And the structuring of a testimonial should follow these 4 points. And it's like a story structure. So you have challenge, solution, result, and experience. So the challenge is, what problem did they face before they worked with you? The solution is, why did they choose you or your service? The result was, what was the benefit? What benefit did they gain from doing that? And the experience is, how do they feel about the entire process with you? So that structure allows people to see themselves in the story. If, however, you say, write me a testimonial, and they go, Ash was great, thumbs up, that's rubbish. You don't want that. You want something that's a lot more tailored to their experience, and the client or the potential prospect after that, because we're using it for marketing, need to see themselves in that story. So it is that challenge or problem, the solution, the result, the experience. These are the 4 things we need to take them through. And that's a great storytelling structure that if you start getting your testimonials like that, you will see an absolute increase in people buying from you because the testimonials are great. Now let's talk about how to boost referrals. One thing specifically, which is the best referral strategy I've ever seen, and this is and used, is sending a personalized card on completion. Now completion, going back to the peak end effect, completion is the end. So peak and end. Peak is obviously when the mortgage is offered. We know that's really good, but now the end, we need to make sure that end is great. Now I do speak to because what they do is, like as I've put here, avoid sending generic gifts, so wine, branded mugs, hampers. Avoid those things. It's very important to avoid those things. And the reason why is because if you go down the route of selling those, there's a couple of reasons actually. But the first one is consumables. Let's take hampers and wine and stuff. Consumables are consumable. They don't last. So no one really remembers them after they've been eaten or drunk. They're just gone. So that's a big one. The second thing you have though, is with consumables is, this is one that people don't think about. Let's take me, for example. I am vegan and I don't drink. Now I've had people I've worked with in the industry actually did my mortgage and my insurance, and they sent me a hamper with wine and chocolates, knowing that they would have done my medical questions, and it is, I don't drink and I can't eat chocolate. And why is that important? Well, because it shows instantly, we talk about peak end. And I joke about it. I know the client, and I pulled them up for it in a funny way. I was like, look, but the reality is you end that relationship by sending them something that says, I never actually listened to what you said. If you did my medical questionnaire, you know that I've answered those questions. We've had those conversations. I would have expected you to retain that information. Now, you don't have to retain that information. Just don't send them food. Because if you're sending a recovering alcoholic a bottle of wine, that's probably not a great gift. In fact, it'll set them off and make them and tarnish your entire relationship. You don't want that. So don't send them that. So the other reason they say about branded stuff, no one wants your branded stuff. Like nothing's worse than a branded mug or a branded pencil or no one wants that. It's just tacky crap. No one wants it at all. It's this ego thing of thinking that people care about us. They don't. They care about them. So instead, what you should be looking at doing is sending a customized Moonpig card with their house on the photo of their house on the front and a moving date. I love this one. I used to do it. We would send them a card, a breaking news card. It had their house on the front that I'd saved from Rightmove, and it was the first thing to arrive on their doorstep. It would be the the first thing they arrive when they move in. It was sent to them. It was super personalized. Why was it important with that? Well, because it was the type of thing that they would keep. It was a massively emotional connection. They would then put that card up on the mantelpiece usually. And this is what I used to use when I was an advisor, and they would do this, and then people would come in, and then they would go, "Who sent you that card? That's lovely." And they say, "Oh, I've got this great mortgage broker. His name's Ash." That's how it works. It's so valuable. And one of my clients specifically, Ripley, he actually got 7 referrals off one card. 7. So that maximizing on that peak and the end, which is all about testimonials, the peak and the end is what is going to hugely increase your leads, those referral leads specifically. But if we just sleep on it and we just constantly think, well, I've got they're old clients now, I need to deal with new business, you're losing out. So to summarize in this thing, the first thing you need to think about is you need to implement all of these steps in this blueprint for the best results. If you do all of these things, you will get the best possible result, period. It just will be. What I would say on that, after you've started to implement these things, is you want to build a business with referral, brand, and demand leads to create that long-term success, and monitor this. If you don't monitor that, you are going to catch yourself out. These things all together will make your business a robust business. And then stay consistent with content follow-ups and building and brand building. If you are not consistent with it, you will fall foul. Now, if you want to check out another one of my masterclasses, you can actually check it out right here on screen, which is my scale formula. So it's how to scale your mortgage business. It's 5 steps. It's a system and a framework we use with clients to bring on staff and then grow the business so they can, if they want to, get themselves out of the business. Check it out.